So we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. This is the verse we're up to. is 1032. Before I start reading the verse, I'd just like to thank anyone who's watching this. But I'm going to just read the verse word for word in the translation and purport. Saganam adi antascha madhyam chaivaham arjuna adhyatma vidya vidyanam vada pravadatam aham. Saganam, of all creations, adi, the beginning, anta, end, cha, end, madhyam, middle, cha, also, eva, certainly, aham, I am, Arjuna, O Arjuna, adhyatma, adhyatma vidya, spiritual knowledge, vidyanam, of all education, vadaha, the natural conclusion, pravadatam, of arguments, aham, I am. So this is 1032. Of all creations, I am the beginning and the end and also the middle. O Arjuna, of all sciences, I am the spiritual science of the self, and among logicians, I am the conclusive truth. Purport. Among the created manifestations, the first is the creation of the total material elements. As explained before, the cosmic manifestation is created and conducted by Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshai Vishnu, and Kshirodakshai Vishnu. And then again, it is annihilated by Lord Shiva. Brahma is a secondary creator. All these agents of creation, maintenance, and annihilation are incarnations of the material qualities of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, He is the beginning, the middle, and the end of all creation. For advanced education, there are various kinds of books of knowledge, such as the four Vedas. There are 6 supplements, the Vedanta Sutra, books of logic, books of religiosity, and the Puranas. So altogether, there are 14 divisions of books of education. Of these, the book which presents Adhyatma Vidya, spiritual knowledge, in particular, the Vedanta Sutra, represents Krishna. Among logicians, there are different kinds of argument. Supporting one's argument with evidence that also supports the opposing side is called jalpa. Merely trying to defeat one's opponent is called vitanda, but the actual conclusion is called vada. This conclusive truth is a representative of Krishna. So read the translation again. Of all creations, I am the beginning and the end and also the middle. O Arjuna, of all sciences, I am the spiritual science of the self, and among logicians, I am the conclusive truth. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nivase Sasunyavadi Paschachade Satarane. So, interesting, we think of, first of all creations, I am the beginning, the end, and also the middle of creation. So, Prabhupada starts the purport with among the created manifestations. The first is the creation of the total material elements. So, the spiritual world is eternal. The material world is created, maintained, and annihilated. And all those personalities, Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshai Vishnu, Kshirodakshai Vishnu, Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma is a secondary creator. They are all representations of Krishna or expansions of Krishna. So Krishna is the beginning of creation is the beginning of the material world, not the spiritual world, because the spiritual world is eternal. There's no beginning or end. Anything that has a beginning also has an end. So this is the creations, which are Krishna. Every part of creation is Krishna. So all these agents of creation, maintenance, and annihilation are incarnations of the material qualities of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, He is the beginning, the middle, and the end of all creation. Now the next part, for advanced education, there are various kinds of books. Prabhupada explained so many different kinds of books that there are for advanced education. Advanced education is all kinds of knowledge. Veda means knowledge. There's knowledge of military science, there's knowledge of medicine, there's knowledge of astrology, there's some just diplomacy. There's so many types of knowledge, and all of them are in the Vedas. But of all the different types of knowledge, the spiritual knowledge is the most important. Krishna says that of the sciences, I am the spiritual science of the self. So this is the most important part of knowledge, because the other things are just material. They're temporary. So if you want to learn Ayurvedic medicine, you may be able to live a healthy life and help other people who are sick to get better. But that's all material. I mean, it's not a bad thing, it's a good thing. Like right now, it would be nice if there was some way of fighting this coronavirus, but at the same time, actually we have to see that this virus is coming like Krishna's allowing this to happen for some purpose. We may not know what that purpose is, but it's not like it's just the Chinese that did this. Krishna is giving the Chinese the credit for doing it. But it's actually Krishna who's actually doing it for whatever reasons. Even in the Bhagavad Gita, it says he comes to protect the devotees and to annihilate the miscreants. And Srila Prabhupada explains he doesn't need to come personally to annihilate the miscreants. He can do it by, he didn't say viruses, but he can do it by natural disturbances, earthquakes, tsunamis, floods, landslides. There's so many ways that people can be wiped out. Even war. People can be wiped out in war. He doesn't have to come personally to, he has his agents that can take care of all that. So similarly, this is ultimately coming from God. We have to see everything is coming from God. We can't see that this is happening just randomly. There's a reason for it. We may not know the reason. So Ayurveda is to help in people who have some medical problems. So now he gives some sort of disease, and he also gives a cure, some way to solve it. So that's, you can find in the Vedas, this Ayurveda, which is the science of medicine. But that's not the highest science. So people now think, just to be healthy, that's what's important. To be healthy, I mean, you're going to die healthy. What's the use of being healthy? Everybody's going to die. It's the end. So, so people have different ideas. To have a lot of money, it'd be good to die that way. Some sort of figuring out the stock market, because the stock market right now is just going up and down, and they might think, this is a knowledge. There's some knowledge about this. I don't think the Vedas talk about the stock market. But I was thinking about the stock market in relationship to spiritual life. Spiritual life, Krishna consciousness, in one sense, is, I'll explain how, is like the stock market. Because the stock market it goes up and then it comes down. It goes up and comes down. It goes up and comes down. But it doesn't come down as much as it's going up. And sometimes our spiritual life seems like that. We do really well, and then we have some problems spiritually. Then we do really well again, a little more, a little higher, come down. And sometimes, like the stock market here, was kind of crashed and it came down really far. Sometimes our spiritual life may seem like we're really going down far, and then we have to work our way back up again. The creation, there's no creation of the spiritual world. Spiritual world is eternal. It doesn't have a beginning, it doesn't have an end. But the material world is created. Now there are so many creations in this material world, but the first is the creation of the material world itself. And that comes from Mahavishnu. He breathes in and then he breathes out. When he breathes out, all these universes come out of his pores. And they float around in the what is it called? In the Mahatattva, where is it? It's one quarter of the spiritual creation. It's one little area, and all these universes are there. And then in each universe, there is each universe is like a ball, and all the planets are, well, not yet, but inside the universe there's a ball half full of water, and Garbhodaksha Vishnu is lying on this ocean, Garbhodak ocean. And from his navel, Lord Brahma comes, and then he does the secondary creation, because all the ingredients are already there, everything is there, but then he creates all the planets within the universe. But there's millions of billions of universes, and all this creation is billions and billions of years, is one breath of Mahavishnu. And he's not like he's holding his breath, he's breathing naturally. And he just breathes out, all the universes are created. Then he breathes in and they come back. For us it's billions and trillions of years. For him it's just one breath, a few moments. So this creations. Then there's Kshirodaksha Vishnu. From Garbhodaksha Vishnu, Kshirodaksha Vishnu comes, and all the he comes within every atom of the universe, and he's also in everyone's heart also. So I wish we had what I said before, because I think I said things better before, but it's too late. That was a creation that never happened. But the main thing I was talking about before was the sciences, that there's so many sciences, and Veda means knowledge. There's different types of knowledge. There's knowledge of Ayurveda, and I was talking about that. There's which is the knowledge of medicine, and how medicine helps someone who's diseased, and someone who knows the Ayurvedic medicine can help one. And right now we have this disease of this virus, coronavirus, and people are getting sick, and some people are dying from it. And I did mention earlier that this actually has come from Krishna, from God. Nothing can happen unless God sanctions it. Then there's a reason for it. I don't know the reason for it, but there's a reason for everything. Nothing is just happens. There's no such thing as a coincidence. Everything is, there's the unseen hand of God in everything that's happening. So, one thing we can see is because people are so sinful that therefore there's some reaction comes from the sins, and people have to suffer. The material world is actually a place of suffering. It's Abrahma bhuvanaloka puna avartino junamamopetya tukanteya puna janmana vidyate. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all the places of misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. So it's a place of birth and death. It's not a nice place. Another place, Prabhupada said, what is the difference if you die when you're 90 years old or you die when you're 5 years old? What's the difference? You can say 90 years or 85 years difference. But you're going to die. Everyone's going to die. I mean, it's terrible for the people who are here because we're all in the same bodily concept of life. And because of the bodily concept of life, we have to suffer so much. But this is the material world. It's a place of death. It's not where we're supposed to be happy. You get some happiness, but it's called chapala sukha, flickering. It's there and it's gone. Real happiness doesn't end. And that you can only get in the spiritual world. Or you can get it here in the material world if you're Krishna conscious. If you're fully God conscious, you can be happy all the time. And then you do feel suffering, but not because of yourself. You feel suffering because so many other people are suffering and you'd like to help them. So there's that in the material world. But the material world is just not a very nice place. So the suffering has to be there. So hopefully bring people more to God consciousness. There's a saying, I don't know if everybody knows this saying, but that there are no atheists in the foxhole. I don't think wars so much have foxholes anymore, but they used to have foxholes. Do you know what a foxhole is?
Foxhole?
Yeah. Okay, a foxhole. I have one Indian gentleman here, a devotee, and he doesn't know what a foxhole is, and if there's other Indian people, they may not know. But a foxhole is during the First World War, mainly. They dig a hole, and they go inside the hole, and they stick their head out and shoot, and the other guys are in another hole, and that hole is called a foxhole. Or they have a whole ditch dug out, and you can walk up and down, but it's also considered a foxhole. Anyway, the point I'm making is there's no atheist in a foxhole. When you're there by yourself and somebody's shooting at you, or many people are shooting at you, all trying to kill you, and you got to try to kill them, then you pray to God. Even if you didn't believe in God, just, I don't know if there's a God, but please help me, please save me. So there are no atheists in the foxhole. So sometimes when there's a lot of distress, people become more religious. I don't know if that's the reason Krishna created this. And Krishna didn't even create this. Like, it's not like he's getting involved in this. He's totally in the spiritual world, enjoying with his devotees. But his different incarnations who are serving him, they do these things just to serve the mission of the Lord. What is best for making people Krishna conscious? What is best for making people God conscious? So there are so many sciences, Ayurveda, there's the science of military science, there are so many different sciences, and you can learn them from the Vedas. And I was mentioned just about when you first started, I was already way past this. And I mentioned something about the stock market, how it's going up and down. And we can even relate that to our spiritual lives. How our spiritual lives, you may start at 0 and you go up to 5, and then you come down 2, and then you go up to 10 and you come down 3, and like we keep going up and then we keep messing up, having some fall down, some slip. Or like Prabhupada has explained, just like spiritually we're like babies, and just like a baby's learning how to walk, it gets up, it walks, and it falls down, but it gets up again and keeps walking. So that's how we learn how to walk. So spiritually we may have these fall downs or deviations or slips, or I couldn't do everything I was supposed to do, whatever the case may be. But it seems like spiritual life is similar to the stock market in a sense, but it keeps going up. So right now it's down. Of course, the stock market is material. It can go down and never come back up. But spiritually, we do keep going up. We come up to a certain point because there's no loss or diminution. So you don't really even fall down. You may seem like you fall down because you got to work back to get to a certain position. But actually, there's no loss or diminution. Whatever spiritual progress you made, that stays with you eternally. But you can compare it to the stock market if you so like. And hopefully, your stock market just keeps going up. And some others goes up and down, and sometimes goes really far down, like just recently. Not in my spiritual life, but in the external stock market has gone down quite a bit, and the all the professionals say, just wait it out, it'll go back up. And most likely it will. But anyway, let's see. Oh, so back to the spiritual science. So out of all the sciences, the spiritual science is the most important science, because that's the science that's going to help you get out of this material world altogether. The other sciences are all material to help somebody to live healthier. They're still going to die. You know, people want to be healthy. They think health is the most important thing. You know, just as long as you're healthy, you know, it doesn't matter. Just as long as you're healthy. It matters. Everything matters. If you're healthy spiritually, that's what matters. It doesn't matter if you're healthy materially, if you're rich or poor, or you have so many wonderful things materially. But if you're spiritually lacking, then it's completely useless. But if you're spiritually progressing, it doesn't matter. Even if you're not healthy, even if you're dying, actually that's the time you really want to be spiritually progressive. You want to progress spiritually, especially when you're dying, because that's going to determine where you go in your next life. So we have to think about the spiritual science. Even in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which was written after Srila Vyasadeva wrote the Vedas. He wasn't satisfied after writing all the Vedas, and Narada Muni, his guru, told him, it's because you haven't sufficiently broadcasted the glories of the Lord. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is completely spiritual. It is Krishna. And if you hear Srimad Bhagavatam, then that's completely spiritual. All the Vedas deal with all this other knowledge. And it deals with the spiritual science too. It's not that the Vedas doesn't deal with the spiritual science, but it doesn't emphasize the spiritual science. As if you can study all the Vedas, you'll just think it's just a bunch of sacrifices so that you can get good material things. But that's not the important part of the Vedas, even though that is in the Vedas. So he wasn't happy. Narada Muni told him that you in one sense you've done a disservice by writing all these Vedas. Now people are going to do all these things which is not the purpose of life. You have to explain to them what the whole purpose of life is. And then he wrote the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a completely spiritual book. And there's one copy here, the 10th canto. But that's the important part of the Vedas, because that benefits us eternally. Even if you live a perfectly healthy life, perfectly rich life, perfectly moral life, even if you do so many things perfectly, if you don't make spiritual advancement, it's a complete waste of time. At the end of your life, you have nothing. Whereas if you make spiritual advancement, at the end of your life, you'll have all that advancement you made, and you'll begin again your next life to continue until you become fully Krishna conscious. And maybe at the end of this life, you'll be Krishna conscious, and you can go back home, back to Godhead, and get out of this material world altogether. It's not a nice place. I remember giving a class once here, but with a real audience besides one person who's filming me. And one young girl was there. She was a Westerner. And I was saying, basically what Krishna says, that this material world is a horrible place. And she said, it's not true. I mentioned old age and disease. Old age is not good. And anyone who's old will confirm it's not good. I was actually in a supermarket, and there was two old ladies behind me, and they were talking about something about, she woke up in the morning and she was in pain, and she's still in pain, and she said, old age sucks. And it sounds like something a devotee would say. She wasn't a devotee. She was just old. So you don't have to be a devotee to know that old age is not very nice. And so this one young lady said, my grandmother, she's old and she's really happy. She's very happy. I said, you have no idea what she's experiencing. Just like a friend of mine, I known him since like 1972 in the temple in Boston, and he's my age, which is kind of old age. It is old age. And he went to the doctor, and he said, the doctor asked him, how do you feel? He said, I feel great. But he said, but if I felt like this when I was 20 years old, I'd go to the emergency room. So old age, you think you feel great, but then you got this. It's all relative, but it's not very pleasant to get old. I mean, it's probably better than dying young, but it's still not very pleasant. But you can have that experience, and hopefully that experience will help you to become more God conscious. Although it's harder to take to Krishna consciousness when you're old, unless you were spiritually. You were spiritual for your whole life, not necessarily with Krishna consciousness, and then maybe you'll be able to take to it. But if you didn't believe in God, say, your whole life, it's hard to just change. Once you're old, you get set in your ways. Anyway, the material world is not very nice, and the only thing that can help you is this spiritual science. So among logicians, there are different kinds of argument. Supporting one's argument with evidence that also supports the opposing side is called jalpa. Merely trying to defeat one's opponent is called vitanda. But the actual conclusion is called vada. This conclusive truth is a representation of Krishna. So there are different types. It's interesting in English, as far as I know, in America, there's logic and reason. Here, logic is even broken up into so many different types of logic. But the conclusive truth is Krishna. What is the absolute truth? There's also, like we have Bhakti Vedanta, Srila Prabhupada, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. Vedanta is the Veda is knowledge, Vedanta is the end of knowledge, and Bhakti is the end of knowledge. Love and devotion to God is the end of knowledge. There's nothing higher than that. So to come to that platform, to come to that conclusion, first of all, come to that conclusion, and then trying to fulfill that conclusion by acting appropriately. That's also knowledge, and jnana is knowledge, and vijnana is practical application of that knowledge. So making an effort to come to love and devotion to God. Now, love and devotion, we may have some love and devotion, but it's not 24 hours a day. A few minutes here and there. But real love and devotion is 24 hours a day, and that's what we should be striving for. And that's the end of knowledge. When you're actually just thinking of Krishna, serving Krishna, loving Krishna. When you love Krishna, you do things for him. When you love anyone, you do things for them. You love your wife. Actually, let's say your girlfriend before you got married. That's when you do things for them. When you love your wife in the beginning, you might do things so much, but then after a while, it's just same old, same old. You may not be doing the same things, but that's a sign of love. And of course, if your wife got sick, you would be doing everything you can to try to help her. So sometimes, even with children, I noticed one time we had this devotee couple. They were living here with a daughter, probably 7 years old, and the daughter, she kind of wanted to do more things, like with me, would play or something. I don't remember what we were doing, but the father was thinking, why does she want to be with me more than with him? But then she got hurt, and she didn't run to me. She ran to her father when she got hurt. So it's like that's really where her security was. I was just somebody to play with for a little while. I didn't feel bad about it either. I just got some realizations. So sometimes we may not be reciprocating so much seemingly with someone, but if something actually happens, then you see the real reciprocation come out. Do you have any questions? We have one person here anyway.
So initially you spoke about Krishna. He comes and gives punishment in terms of tsunami and all right. So and you told that this talk about this virus situation is going on now. So but we see that even devotees also getting affected with this virus. So what do you say about it?
Well, that's a very good question. So his question is that I was saying how tsunamis and hurricanes and stuff, this is what the point was for that, to kill the miscreants. He doesn't have to come personally, but he comes to give protection and pleasure to his devotees. And also he comes for future devotees, that they can hear of his pastimes and get attracted to him. You can't, somebody love God. What do you know about God? If you don't know anything about him, you can't love him. I tell them there's a king in Australia. He's a wonderful person. Well, there's a person. I don't think they have a king, but there's a person in Australia. They're wonderful, and they tell you their name. We don't even know God's name, and most people, we know God's name. We know he has many names. But love this person. How can I love this person? Well, his name is this. That's not enough. Then he's done these things. He does these things. Then you can develop some love for him just by hearing about him. So Krishna has done so many things for us even now, so we can hear about him. So he doesn't have to come to annihilate the miscreants. So now we see some people are getting killed by this virus, and let's just say they're miscreants, or they're demons, or they're bad people. But what about devotees? Now the same thing happens to devotees. Not like devotees don't die. Devotees die. Devotees get cancer. Devotees get coronavirus. We have one devotee in England who died from coronavirus. So what's the difference? Is Krishna? No, Krishna's. One time during the war, Second World War, someone asked Srila Prabhupada, what would you do if a bomb came down right now, on top of us? And Prabhupada said, I would think that Krishna has come to take me home. So death for the devotee and death for the non-devotee are completely different. Its example is a cat. The cat has a mouse in his mouth, and the mouse is screaming, death, he's going to die. And the mouse has his kitten in his mouth, carrying his kitten. And the kitten, it's just the most nice experience. His mother's carrying him to a certain place. It's not death, it's not horrible, it's not painful, it's nice. So similarly, death for the non-devotee may be horrible. Death for the devotee is not bad. If he's going back to Godhead, it's fantastic. It says just like lightning and illumination occur simultaneously, you leave this body and you obtain your spiritual body simultaneously. That's pretty nice. It's a lot nicer than suffering in this body. So it's not that devotees won't get sick. And even when we get sick, there's different reasons. So say you don't die. You get this coronavirus, but you get really sick, deadly sick, but you don't die, you recover from it. Why? We have so many things we've done wrong in past lives. You got to burn off your karma. It's also because of aparads, offenses. You commit offenses to devotees or to Krishna, but mainly to devotees, then you have to suffer a reaction for that. That's the main reason people have to suffer, devotees have to suffer, is they commit offenses. And we all commit offenses. Sometimes it seems to me, if you're not knowingly committing offenses, it's not going to be nearly as bad, but you may even commit unknowing offenses. But if you consciously commit offenses, now the offenses are where you're doing something where you want that person to suffer, not just like joking, saying something about somebody. That's not really like an offense. But when, of course, if they take it seriously, then you should apologize and let them know. But generally, I remember reading. Tamal Krishna Maharaj wrote to Prabhupada, what's the difference between calling a spade, fault finding, and blasphemy. So, Prabhupada, this is very interesting because first thing Prabhupada says, calling a spade, just like I tell you, you're nothing but a small fig. That's calling a spade. And what were the other two? That's what Prabhupada said. So he always had this relationship with Tamal Krishna to try to keep him from, seems to be to try to keep him from getting too proud. So he would say these things to him in a joking way. So then Tamal Krishna Maharaj said, fault finding and blasphemy. He said, fault finding, like you see something wrong and you point it out. It's fault finding. You look for those things wrong. But blasphemy is there's not even anything wrong and you're still trying to find faults. You're still trying to put that person down. And even though there's no fault. So that's blasphemy. Most of us don't really, I don't think most of us blaspheme. I know certain people, and they have their websites and the whole thing is just full of blasphemy. But for most of at least in our congregation, I don't see anyone really blaspheming anyone. We may still have fault finders and we should try to even give that up. Prabhupada said we should be like the bee and go to the honey, not like the fly and go to the saw. So sometimes we may have done something wrong, committed some offenses, and we have to get some reaction for that, even as devotees. But the real nice thing is the way a devotee should think is if a devotee gets ill, if a devotee loses his money, if a devotee, his house burns down, whatever happens, the devotee, a real devotee thinks, actually, I deserve worse than that. That is just a token punishment for how sinful I have been. So Krishna is being so kind. So the devotee thinks like that. Whereas the karmi or the materialist, when something bad happens, he thinks, why me? Why is this happening to me? I didn't do anything. So that's the difference in the mentality of a devotee and the mentality of the non-devotee. And when you have that mentality of accepting this, then Krishna minimizes it. He's just trying to really, there's different things he's doing. He may be trying to teach us a lesson, or he may be trying to use us as an example of how a devotee should behave so others can learn. Because if we look at Srila Prabhupada, he's the greatest devotee of the modern age. And he went through a lot of suffering. He didn't consider it suffering. He didn't consider it such great austerity. He just went through it, no big deal. But at the same time, you might say, why should he suffer? And if you read the Leela Amrita and other books about Prabhupada, just to come to America in the first year in America, after that, his suffering minimized other than a heart attack or some other type of illness, but at least he wasn't just struggling to exist. But he tolerated it all, and he never complained about it. He did pray when he first came here that you must be a reason you sent me here, so if you'd like, you can make my words suitable for their understanding. And I'm your puppet. You can make me a success, you can make me a failure, as you like. And if you want, you can make me dance, make me dance, make me dance. So, Srila Prabhupada, he went through so much, but his what somebody might say is karma. It wasn't karma. It was there so that we as devotees can learn how determined we have to be in order to spread Krishna consciousness. And none of us have to do anything compared to what Srila Prabhupada has done. So, I don't remember what your question was.
Yes, I got the answer.
Okay.
Why devotees suffer?
Oh yeah, why devotees suffer, right, okay, with this coronavirus or any other type of suffering. Okay, does any of my one audience member have anything to say? No more questions? Okay, well I thank anyone who's tolerated this half an hour or 40 minutes, whatever it's been. It's been a great experience for me. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, glories to Srila Prabhupada.